Hi, it's Rachel here again. I seem to have a lot to say this week. Today I would like to make a video, hopefully brief, about Holy Folk. XJWs who are watching this, or perhaps those who are former members of other high control groups, may know who Holy Folk is, but I'll just read out a brief bio. Holy Folk is an Associate Professor of Global Humanities and Religions, formerly known as Liberal Studies, at Western, I guess that's Western Washington University, and a historian who studies 19th and 20th century religion and culture. Her research addresses a variety of social movements that fall outside the mainstream, including new religions, communes and utopias, anarchism and alternative medicine. So that's who she is. And we often hear about her, if you're an ex-witness, in association with Massimo Intravigna, and I do apologise for mispronouncing it, in connection with the Centre for Studies of New Religious Movements. And Holly has offered her expert opinion on many occasions when the subject of religious freedom comes up in many places around the world. I came across one of her video presentations a few days ago, and the video lecture was from about 3 years ago about the Jehovah's Witnesses. So I took a few deep breaths and decided I would hear what she had to say. And because your first gut is to go, oh no, but no, I thought I'll hear her out, hear what she says. There's a lot she said that I could agree with. But there were things that she said that I also found quite offensive. I mean, I don't think Holy Folk is a monster like I hear some former high control group members say, but I'm not a monster either. And this is the problem I have with the things that I've heard her say and write about, and also Massimo, the way they talk about ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. It's very concerning to me. Their characterization of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who raise concerns about the Jehovah's Witnesses are grossly unfair, if you ask me. They kind of paint all activists with the same brush. They talk about, in their articles, the anti-Jehovah's Witness activists, as if it's one homogenous group of activists. And it's not at all like that. Plus the terminology anti-Jehovah's Witness is, for the majority of activists that I know, they are not anti-Jehovah's Witnesses. They are anti some of the policies and teachings that actually harm people, that infringe upon their human rights. That's not anti-Jehovah's Witnesses. But they portray ex-JW activists in this light, with this broad brush. It's very much like what the Jehovah's Witnesses do when they refer to former members as apostates. Now, you get all kinds of apostates. You may get apostates who are apostates in the true sense of the word. You may get ones that have literally abandoned Christianity and have, as the scriptures say that Christ did not come in the flesh. So going by the scriptural standard, according to the interpretation of Jehovah's Witnesses, maybe they are apostates. But there are also ones that they term apostates who have very legitimate concerns about the organisation and legitimate grievances, and they see injustices and they raise the alarm and they get labelled as apostates. Then you get apostates who actually make outlandish allegations against the Jehovah's Witnesses. You get all types, yet Massimo in particular seems to tarnish all ex-JW, anti-JW or anti-cult activists, shoves them all into the one same category. And so when they do that, they actually, you know, with some of the legitimate activists are trying to really help find a solution to the problems that we have by labeling us or lumping us in with this anti-JW activist label. They are discrediting us in the eyes of the public. I've had this happen to me. I was actually talking to a group about mandatory reporting, whether there were any merits to it. I didn't even mention Jehovah's Witnesses, yet somebody tried to discredit me and my views because I am an ex-Jehovah's Witness. So people like Massimo are discrediting us and our real efforts to help and to find solutions, because the Jehovah's Witnesses have a problem. They are creating victims. People's rights to their family, to their private life, to their freedom of conscience, their freedom of thought, their freedom to adopt or change their religious belief. These are all infringed upon by the Jehovah's Witnesses, by the teachings. When I say Jehovah's Witnesses, I mean the leadership. So I find it really hurtful and kind of, I don't know, it seems like Massimo is doing towards us what he says we're doing to the Jehovah's Witnesses. And the Jehovah's Witnesses, of course, are labelling those who speak out as apostates, which is another very negative label. And, you know, don't listen to apostates, they say. Oh, what that person says is not credible because they're an apostate. I mean, what kind of reasoning is that? Anyway, I'm getting a bit flustered about this, but so that's one of the problems that I have with what they say, how they characterize, how it's activists, how it's not nuanced, and it gives this impression to the outside world reading their articles that the anti-Jehovah's Witness activists are this homogenous group that are working together, that are in agreement. Personally, I can think of a few activists that I do not agree with at all. But here I am, probably lumped in with them. But anyway, I think I've said enough about that. What I want to say is that I read an article from Holly and I agree with a lot of what she says. I don't think she's a monster. I think she's between a rock and a hard place. And, you know, there aren't easy solutions, really. I mean, freedom of religion is important, but it seems that some people have more freedom than other people. Human rights are supposed to be universal. That's that's one of the things it says in our treaties, that these human rights apply equally to everyone. Yet we're finding that they aren't applying equally to everyone. Some are more equal than others, it seems, which kind of demolishes the idea of equality altogether, doesn't it? And universality of human rights. So it seems that the human rights of us who have exited these high control groups that will see that we are shunned by our families, their rights are overriding our rights, our protected rights, supposedly, to our families especially. So anyway, I want to read this article, and she actually sounds like quite a nice lady. So it's called Jehovah's Witnesses and Sexual Abuse, Answering Some Criticism. Now bear in mind, I don't agree with everything that's in here, but the sentiments I do. Survivors of sexual abuse have every right to be angry. Sometimes, however, they should consider whether they are not used again, this time to support anti-cult campaigns. I am writing this as an addendum to my 3 articles on the Jehovah's Witnesses and sexual abuse, my online presentation at a seminar organised in September 2020, which I think is the video I watched, 2020, has inspired numerous people to email me, and I anticipate that the articles will prompt more. Several of the emails have raised the same point. You don't understand. How can you say this? To those who have been victims of sexual abuse, it's not enough to say, I feel your pain. Sexual abuse is personal, and each instance leaves its individual's traumatic imprint. Not individuals, individual traumatic imprint. It would be presumptuous to tell any survivor that I understand their personal situation, but I do understand from personal experience the widespread nature of the problem, the frequent ineffectiveness of law enforcement and the courts, and the devastatingly bad, tone-deaf reactions people can have when victims tell their stories. I feel passionately, as a survivor myself, that sexual assault should not be used as a proxy issue, and especially not for personal financial gain, politics, or religious competition. High-profile cases win symbolic victories but do little to address the problem of abuse in society. Worse, they draw large amounts of human power away from the multitude of cases that do not benefit from media attention, reducing the actual number of cases prosecuted. The focus on the Jehovah's Witnesses, a group that is misunderstood by the general public, lets society displace and ignore the real abuse that happens. By pretending that there is an association between abuse and controversial religious minorities, people maintain the fiction that abuse is a problem of the other, the far enemy, when in fact real abuse may be as nearby as the house next door or the next room in one's own home. I believe strongly in civil liberties, which are essential in a free democratic society. The campaign against the Jehovah's Witnesses, while doing little to stop actual abuse in society, is a harbinger of restrictions on religious exercise. Actually, I do feel a little bothered by that statement, because I do think that many ex-Jehovah's Witness activists are trying to stop actual abuse in society, and that's why many of us are campaigning for mandatory reporting in many countries, including mine in New Zealand. To me, religious freedom includes the right to be wrong. Although practiced by many religions, including in my own family, disfellowshipping former members is a deeply painful experience for many people. The hurt sustained by shunning is real, and people have a right to call for its change. Yet how mistaken it might be in the eyes of its opponents. I'll just read that again. Yet, however mistaken it might be in the eyes of its opponents, it is a decision free people should have the right to make. The Jehovah's Witnesses are not the only group that holds it is their right to do so. So again, I do have a bit of a problem with this paragraph because she says that shunning is real and people have a right to call for its change. And that's what I'm trying to do. And many people like me, we're calling for change, but we get shut down because people like Holly and Massimo lump us in with people that they may not have the same motives. So they're really working against us. And where it says here that shunning, it is a decision free people should have the right to make. Yes, free people should have the right to decide who they talk to or not. But Jehovah's Witnesses are not free people. They are told who they can talk to or not. And we know it's not their choice always to not talk to a particular person. We know for a fact that this is the case because many of them will actually sneak around to continue contact with a loved one who's disfellowshipped. Which indicates that if they were given the choice, they would do it in the open. They wouldn't have to hide. But of course, Massimo, and I suspect Holly as well, don't believe in coercion in religions. They don't believe in so-called brainwashing, which they define as mental manipulation. They think that's not real, that it doesn't exist. I'll talk more about that tomorrow. I'll continue with her article. To readers who decry their shattered childhoods and victim survivors everywhere, I am sorry for everything that happened to you. I hope that the rest of your life is happier than your past. I hope the people who hurt you are brought to justice, and in the sad but realistic possibility that they are not, that justice does not obtain, as too often it does not. I hope you find people who can support you. Life does not always come out fairly. In fact, it seldom does, and much grief is left unresolved. Oh, I can't read that. Ugh, it's annoying. I think reviewing our childhoods, it can be hard to forgive our parents for even mundane mistakes, let alone monstrous deeds done intentionally. I hope you can find peace about your parents and the other adults in your life who betrayed you by their actions and inactions. I realise for some readers, with this series, I have become one of the people who they feel have failed them, transgressed, trespassed. I'm sorry for this, but I feel speaking clearly on this issue is necessary for the preservation of free society. But as I said before, it's just some society is more free than others. All I can ask is that you consider for a moment that you might be being used again by people who care little about achieving justice for victims. So, they have really not seen that there are ex-Jehovah's Witness activists who actually do care about achieving justice for victims. They portray the the anti-Jehovah's activists, as they call them, as being on a campaign of hate to destroy the Jehovah's Witnesses, that they just want to discriminate against them, that they don't like them because they're not popular, they're a minority, all these kinds of stupid reasons. I mean, don't you think people who leave the Witnesses have got better things to do than do that? Why do they feel that they... it's so annoying. When you leave the Jehovah's Witnesses, you are silenced. That's what shunning does to you. It takes away your voice. That makes people angry. And when they're silenced by the Jehovah's Witnesses, then they're silenced again by people like Massimo and Holly and others who agree with them. It makes the activists want to shout louder to be heard. It's only common sense. Anyway, I just want to finish again by saying Holly is not a monster. But I don't agree with her on a few things. And I think she and Massimo are not really helping the situation. They're fueling it. They're fueling the hatred towards people like myself, who I believe I have suffered and been victimised by the organisation. They are invalidating us as human beings, and I think we've had enough invalidation. Thank you very much. So with that, I'll say goodbye. See ya.